National Weather Scope, comprehensive coverage of Hurricane Fran from the Weather Channel.
Hurricane Fran has made landfall in North Carolina tonight. Damage now coming in, reports of damage and flooding all the way up into the Sounds around the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Mike Seidel here in the Weather Channel Forecast Center, and let's give you the latest as of 10. We are certainly anxiously awaiting the latest from the Hurricane Center. The 11 o'clock Eastern Time update still not in, but as soon as we get the information, we will pass it along to you. As of 10, 34.2 north, 78.1 west. That is if you're plotting at home. That puts the center, the eye of Hurricane Fran, just to the west of Wilmington, North Carolina. So those of you in Wilmington have obviously experienced those very strong winds from the south and southeast. Sustained winds down from 105. Fran made landfall about 8:30 tonight around the Cape Fear area and in the Brunswick County area of North Carolina, packing winds of 115 miles an hour. The hurricane now moving north at 16, and the pressure is 956 millibars. Hurricane Fran moving over the Brunswick County area this evening, and in Bolivia, North Carolina, Jill Brown was in the eye of Hurricane Fran for about an hour and a half. Now the worst has returned to that area. Jill, what's the latest?
Well, Mike, we're here at the Brunswick County Emergency Management Facility. We have been all evening. Definitely the first side of this, the first eye wall, was much stronger than what we've been encountering now. You can see that it's windy. It's definitely picked up. The rain really hasn't come back in just yet. Maybe that will happen with time. We've had a report of another crew from another TV station, actually, that came up from Myrtle Beach that said that they were surprised that it wasn't any worse than it was. They felt like they got here okay. Not that we're telling people that they should hit the road, but maybe as this is coming ashore, what I wanted to ask you is, are we getting reports of lower winds? Does it seem that this is beginning to weaken somewhat at this point?
Well, Hurricane Fran is weakening, Joe. I think what we've seen on the radar is that the southern eye wall, the part that you're going through right now, is weaker than the eye wall that you experienced, the northern and northwestern fringe you experienced several hours ago. So that's probably one of the main things that's going on, is that southern eye wall is not quite as powerful.
And I guess that's pretty typical. Well, let me show you something here. We have some video of some damage that we had here in Bolivia. There was a truck parked in the parking lot over here with a cast aluminum tool shed in the back. A limb, I guess maybe 3 inches in diameter or something, just pierced through it. Really amazing. I mean, we look around here and we said there's not much damage right here. There aren't a whole lot of trees down, a few. But someone pointed that out and said, you know, this is what's flying through the air when you have hurricane force winds. So it's good to be definitely inside when that is going on. Things are a little bit quieter at this point, so we're feeling pretty good. Again, the rain hasn't really kicked back in yet. Temperatures drop, winds are picking up, so we're definitely seeing the backside of the eye wall of Hurricane Fran.
Jill, I want to tell the viewers at home, you're about 17 miles from the coast, but you've already had news from the coast of some serious damage, especially in the Southport area. Tell us about that.
That's right. Here at the Emergency Management Center, they have Coast Guard, National Guard, Red Cross officials, and also 911 operators. One of the 911 operators came out and said that they got a call from a woman where the roof of her apartment had collapsed. So she was calling from her apartment with a collapsed roof, asking for help to come out. That was in Southport. They did come out. Apparently she's doing fine, but that's some of the more serious damage that we've heard. Otherwise, it's mainly trees down and high water. And of course, until the sun rises tomorrow, you're not really going to be able to completely assess the damage. And
most likely the worst storm surge will be up the coast in New Hanover County and not so much there in Brunswick County, since as you get down towards the North Carolina line, the winds are blowing offshore, pushing the water away from the coast. Sure, that's true. A lot of people here from some of the barrier islands, and they're all very anxious to get back on those islands and see how their homes have done through the night. Okay, Jill, sit tight. We'll be back to you. Jill Brown from Bolivia, North Carolina. She was in the eye of Hurricane Fran for about an hour and a half, beginning around 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Now, as you have seen there in the pictures, the wind has returned and the rain, albeit not as strong as the eye wall from the north as it came through earlier this evening in Bolivia. We want to get you updated now. We have the latest in from the National Hurricane Center. Hurricane warnings are in effect still from Cape Fear, North Carolina to the North Carolina-Virginia border, including the sound areas, the Pamlico and Albemarle Sounds. A tropical storm warning is now in effect from the north of the state line of North Carolina, Virginia up to Chincoteague, including the Greater Hampton Roads area. All other watches and warnings have been discontinued. So again, the hurricane warnings from Cape Fear, North Carolina, north to the North Carolina-Virginia border. So anywhere from Cape Fear south, that would be the Myrtle Beach area. Your hurricane warnings have been dropped as of 11 o'clock Here's the latest position if you're plotting at home. Fran at 11 o'clock Eastern, 34.5 north and 78.1 west. And there it is as it moves towards the north at 16 miles an hour. And you can see the hurricane spinning around. But look at how broad it is. I mean, we're talking about a huge expanse of moisture. And that, again, is going to be the real weather problem this weekend. We've mentioned Agnes in 72, terrible, terrible flooding through the Appalachians, up through the Poconos. The Wyoming Valley comes to mind around the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton area. Now, we are not advertising anything like Agnes, but we certainly want you to be advised of what could happen this weekend as far as all of the heavy rain coming down. Closer inspection shows you the eye coming on shore, the brighter colors indicating those higher and colder cloud tops and those heavier rain bands. And as we've been seeing throughout this evening, the eye continuing to make its progress off to the north. There it is, just off to the west now, west and northwest of Wilmington, North Carolina. So we are seeing the eye now move away from the coast, and because it's beginning to lose its moisture or rather its energy source, it's losing certainly its tropical energy. So it's going to continue to weaken. Also, the friction associated with the land areas will weaken Fran even more overnight. But again, even though the winds may drop off, still the risk of some serious flooding. Here's our latest Doppler radar from the coast. Here's Cape Fear. Anywhere north, you're still under hurricane warning. That's because the winds are really howling in, as Jim Cantore reported. It's up in the sound areas where we've gotten some flooding. Look at this tremendous amount of rain here. This is where it's raining at the rate of 1 to 2 inches an hour. Back around Myrtle Beach, still some rain bands, but notice the circulation is offshore, and that's what has saved the area around Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And Jeff Morrow has returned. He has been in the depths of the storm at Myrtle Beach, but fortunately, Jeff, some better news for property owners and landowners there tonight.
Yeah, here in Horry County, things are a lot better than they could have been, Mike. Just when you think this hurricane is pretty much past this area and it's pretty much downhill from here, we get another big blast of wind come through and shake loose a few things. We had a downspout blow off the side of the building here a little while ago, but really the damage in this part of South Carolina, really nothing to compare to what's going on up in southeastern North Carolina from what we understand. The ocean during the day today has just been amazing to me. When we got here at 6 in the morning, it was almost flat, not quite, maybe a foot to 2 foot swells. By the time the peak of the hurricane was moving by, it was up to about 18 feet in some of the higher swells. Now it's back down again. I'd say maybe 3 or 4 feet. It just has gone up and down during the course of the day. No overwash because, as you mentioned, it's been an offshore wind flow. That's been good news, and that we've had pretty much all this come in at a time of relatively low tide. So overall, I think we dodged another bullet here as Hurricane Fran missed just off the coast.
Well, Jeff, fortunately, Fran is weakening. We just got the updated pressure. Fran now at 965 millibars, so that pressure is up a full 9 millibars since the last update from the Hurricane Center. So a good sign for all the residents, certainly around Myrtle Beach, but for their friends and neighbors to the north and northeast, the weather is still very, very serious.
That's exactly right, Mike, and we're looking, just as I'm speaking now, we're getting a little bit more wind starting to gust behind me. You can see some of the palm trees, but we think that pretty much it's going to wind down slowly, and again, most folks are pretty grateful that Fran has passed us pretty much on by.
And I think like we saw with Bertha, when you were covering Bertha in the Outer Banks, by tomorrow afternoon, the sun will be back out and people will be back out on the beach.
I would suspect you're exactly right.
Okay, Jeff Morrow from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Thanks for the latest there. And some good news, at least some good news tonight, some good news. Hurricane Fran missing Myrtle Beach and Charleston. We were very concerned yesterday. We were going to have a repeat, much like Hugo in '89. Charleston picking up about an inch of rainfall. Myrtle Beach getting still some more rain and wind, but the worst to the north. And speaking of some damage reports, or at least some flooding, we're getting reports now around the sound areas in North Carolina. We've had water really rising very quickly. The Trent River Bridge is now inaccessible from the New Bern side of North Carolina. That's up towards the north. The winds are still blowing on shore, and that's why the water is being piled up from the east towards the west. Also, the Queens Creek Bridge near Swansboro is underwater, and the beach road in Kill Devil Hills, that's out on the Outer Banks, is closed due to power lines down from an earlier squall. So the winds are still a major problem. Let's go to the hurricane warnings, and then we'll give you some idea of what we can expect. The warnings, as I mentioned, now dropped for South Carolina and Myrtle Beach from Cape Fear north to the state line, and the sound areas. That hurricane warning continues. Hurricane-force wind still battering the coastal areas, and that wind is an onshore wind, so the water is still being piled up in large quantities in these areas as that wind blows onshore. Now, the other story to the hurricane, now once the winds drop off, here you're seeing the wind gust, will be the risk not only of flooding, but of tornadoes. The storm surge will be a problem overnight tonight. Fortunately, the hurricane coming in at low tide. But as the hurricane comes on shore, there's always that risk of tornadoes. This tornado watch up until 11 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow morning. 11 a.m. tomorrow morning, another 12 hours. So watch out around Richmond, Raleigh-Durham. Raleigh-Durham, you had a wind gust last hour to 45 miles an hour and a 3-hour rainfall total of 1.38. And where you see these pink colors, that's where it's rained over 10 inches. Some areas now have picked up over a foot of rainfall, and it's still adding up as Fran moves north. So still the story continues to be the wind and the coastal flooding. The wind damage reports now beginning to come in, but obviously full account of what happened tonight and what is going on right now, we'll have to wait until first light. We'll continue our coverage.
Really enough strength to wave to the crowd. He's heading to the locker room.
Here's Dave Roberts and AccuWeather.
Got some new figures in now on Hurricane Fran. Let's get the latest information. Take a look at the satellite picture and you'll see Fran in motion. 100 miles per hour. The wind's now weakening a little bit as it moves overland north direction, 16 miles an hour. It's 20 miles northwest of Wilmington, North Carolina. All right, it's now on land. Projection from there for us. That's the call from AccuWeather, that arrow in the middle pointing toward the middle portion of Pennsylvania. That's the most likely path. You see it going to the east of Raleigh, to the west of Richmond, and then Friday night, Saturday, on into the center portion of the state of Pennsylvania. Of course, if it veers to the right, more along the coast, we're going to pick up more wind and rain. If it goes to the left, way out there toward Pittsburgh, then we get less. If it stays on that straight track that we just showed you, we're indicating winds 20 to 25 miles per hour with gusts maybe to 35 miles per hour, and winds possibly, rain I should say, possibly 1 to 2 inches. That's the projection for now. Got to watch her carefully. All right, Fran moves toward us. That's what she's doing. 68 degrees in the Poconos, 73 in Allentown, 72 was our low. It's also our present temperature reading, 87.